The radio crackled with desperation. Mayday, mayday. Firebase Alpha under heavy attack, we're being overrun. Colonel Andrea Mitchell's coffee went cold as she heard the panic in Captain Rodriguez's voice. 47 American soldiers trapped in the Afghan desert, enemy convoy closing fast. The nearest air support was 30 minutes out. Mitchell stared at her A-10 Thunderbolt sitting on the tarmac, knowing she had maybe 5 minutes before those men died. Some called her the Warthog Queen. Today, she'd earned that title. Colonel Andrea Mitchell set down her coffee mug and grabbed her flight helmet. The metal was still warm from the Afghan sun beating down on Bagram airfield. She'd been reviewing supply reports when the emergency call came through. "Colonel, we've got a situation," said Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, jogging up with Mitchell's gear. Santos had been her weapons officer for 3 years. The woman could load ordnance faster than anyone in the squadron. Mitchell pulled on her flight suit. "Talk to me, Santos." "Firebase Alpha's taking heavy fire. They're requesting immediate close air support." Santos handed her the mission brief. Estimated 47 personnel trapped. Enemy convoy approaching from the north. Mitchell scanned the paper. Firebase Alpha sat in a valley 30 miles east, surrounded by rocky hills that made escape difficult. The base housed a mix of infantry and engineers building a road through Taliban territory. "Where's our backup?" Mitchell asked. 28 minutes out. 2 F-16s from Kandahar. Mitchell looked across the tarmac at her A-10 Thunderbolt. The aircraft sat low and ugly, built around its massive GAU-8 cannon. After 200 combat missions, she knew every rivet on that plane. Her radio crackled. Any station, this is Firebase Alpha Actual. We are taking heavy casualties. Request immediate air support. Enemy armor approaching our perimeter." The voice belonged to Captain Jake Rodriguez. Mitchell had met him last month during a supply run. Good officer. Steady under pressure. But his voice carried something she'd never heard before, fear. "Santos, how long to get airborne?" 5 minutes if we skip the full pre-flight." Mitchell's phone buzzed. Colonel Thompson from Wing Command. "Mitchell, I see you're suiting up. Stand down. Let the F-16s handle this when they arrive." "Sir, those men won't last 28 minutes. "That's not your call, Colonel. Firebase Alpha will have to hold until proper support arrives." Mitchell watched mechanics rolling her A-10 out of the hangar. The aircraft's nose art showed a cartoon warthog wearing a crown, a gift from her squadron after her 50th mission. "Colonel, with respect, that Firebase has engineers, not infantry. They're not equipped for a sustained fight. Mitchell, you're not authorized for solo close air support. Wait for your wingman." "Sir, Lieutenant Peterson is down with food poisoning. My wingman won't be ready for an hour." Thompson's voice hardened. "Then you wait. That's an order." Mitchell looked at Santos. The younger woman's jaw was set tight. They both heard the radio chatter from Firebase Alpha getting more desperate. "Roger that, sir," Mitchell said into the phone. She hung up and turned to Santos. "You didn't hear that conversation." Santos grinned. "What conversation, Colonel?" Mitchell grabbed her checklist. "Let's go save some soldiers." They jogged toward the A-10. The aircraft's twin engines were already spinning up, courtesy of Sergeant Mike Chen, her crew chief. Chen had kept her bird flying through sandstorms, rocket attacks, and more bullet holes than she cared to count. "She's ready to hunt, Colonel," Chen called out. "Full load of 30mm, for Mavericks, and 2 500-pound bombs." Mitchell climbed into the cockpit. The familiar smell of jet fuel and hydraulic fluid filled her nose. Santos settled into the weapons officer's seat behind her. "Firebase Alpha, this is Hawkeye 1-1. We're 5 minutes out." "Hawkeye 1-1, thank God. We've got enemy vehicles less than a click north. They're using the road we built against us." Mitchell flipped switches, bringing her targeting systems online. The head-up display lit up with green symbols and numbers. "Santos, Target priorities? Armor first, then support vehicles. Keep the big stuff away from those boys. Mitchell taxied toward the runway. Through her canopy, she saw other pilots watching from the squadron building. Some gave thumbs up. Others shook their heads. Everyone knew she was breaking protocol. Tower, Hawkeye 1-1 requesting immediate takeoff. Hawkeye 1-1, you're cleared for takeoff. Winds light and variable. Mitchell pushed the throttles forward. The A-10 rolled down the runway, gaining speed slowly but steadily. The aircraft wasn't built for speed, it was built to take hits and keep fighting. As the wheels left the ground, Mitchell heard Rodriguez's voice again, Hawkeye 1-1, they're at our wire. We need you now. She banked east toward the mountains, leaving a trail of black exhaust against the blue Afghan sky. Firebase Alpha was 25 minutes away at cruise speed. She'd make it in 15. Santos checked her weapons panel. All systems green, Colonel. Let's go ruin someone's day. Mitchell smiled grimly. The hunt was on. The A-10 climbed steadily through the thin mountain air. Mitchell watched the altimeter pass 8,000 feet as the Hindu Kush Mountains spread below like brown wrinkled skin. The aircraft's engines hummed their familiar twin song, a sound that had become as comforting as her own heartbeat. Hawkeye 1-1, Firebase Alpha. We're taking mortar fire from the North Ridge. Enemy vehicles confirmed on the Valley Road. Rodriguez's voice crackled through her headset. Mitchell could hear small arms fire in the background. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. ETA 12 minutes. Can you give me a count on enemy vehicles? Stand by, Hawkeye. Santos adjusted her targeting display. Colonel, I'm picking up multiple heat signatures on infrared. Looks like at least 6 vehicles moving south on the access road. Mitchell banked left, following the winding river valley that led to Firebase Alpha. Below, the landscape shifted from barren peaks to scattered villages connected by dirt roads. She'd flown this route dozens of times, but today everything looked different. More hostile. Hawkeye 1-1, Firebase Alpha actual. We count 8 enemy vehicles. Mix of technical trucks and what looks like 2 BTR armored personnel carriers. They're using our own road construction as cover. Mitchell frowned. BTRs meant serious firepower. Russian-made armored vehicles with cannons and machine guns. The Firebase's defensive positions weren't designed to stop heavy armor. Roger, Firebase Alpha. Any friendly forces between you and the enemy column? Negative, Hawkeye. Road is clear. We pulled our outer perimeter back 20 minutes ago. Santos tapped her screen. Colonel, weather report shows a dust storm moving in from the west. We'll have maybe 30 minutes of clear visibility. Through her canopy, Mitchell saw the brown wall of sand approaching like a slow tsunami. Afghan dust storms could reduce visibility to 0 in minutes. Once that hit, close air support became nearly impossible. Firebase Alpha, be advised weather is moving in. We need to make this count. Copy, Hawkeye. We're running low on ammunition. Whatever you can do, we need it fast. Mitchell pushed the throttles forward. The A-10 accelerated to maximum cruise speed, still slower than most fighters but fast enough. She wasn't flying a race car, she was flying a flying tank. The radio erupted with static, then Rodriguez's voice came through clearer. Hawkeye 1-1, enemy vehicles have stopped. They're setting up what looks like a firing line 400 meters north of our position. We've got wounded who can't be moved. Santos pulled up the digital map. Colonel, that puts them right at the bend in the road. Perfect choke point for us. Mitchell studied the terrain ahead. The valley narrowed where the road curved around a rocky outcrop. Enemy vehicles would be channeled into a killing zone, but they'd also have cover from the rocks. Santos, what's our ordnance status? Full combat load. 1,100 rounds of 30mm for AGM-65 Mavericks, 2 Mark 82 500-pound bombs. Mitchell nodded. More than enough firepower to stop a convoy, but placement would be everything. too close to the firebase and she risked friendly fire. Too far and the enemy could scatter into the hills. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. I need you to pop smoke at your northernmost position. Green smoke if you have it. Wilco, Hawkeye. Green smoke in 30 seconds. Mitchell descended to 6,000 feet, staying above small arms range but low enough for accurate targeting. The A-10's targeting pod swiveled, searching the road ahead. Smoke's out, Hawkeye. Mitchell spotted the green plume rising from Firebase Alpha's perimeter. The enemy convoy sat 800 meters beyond, vehicles spread across the road in combat formation. Visual on friendly smoke. Visual on enemy armor. Beginning attack run. Santos activated the weapons systems. Targeting pod is locked on. I've got good separation between friendlies and hostiles. Mitchell rolled into a shallow dive, lining up for a north-to-south attack run that would keep Firebase Alpha safely to her right. The GAU-8 cannon was designed to destroy Soviet tanks. These BTRs wouldn't stand a chance. Hawkeye 1-1, Firebase Alpha. They're moving again. Closing fast on our position. Through her targeting display, Mitchell watched the enemy vehicles advance. The lead BTR had its cannon trained on Firebase Alpha's main bunker. Behind it, technical trucks loaded with fighters bounced over the rough road. Firebase Alpha, take cover. Danger close fire mission inbound. Rodriguez's voice was steady despite the circumstances. Roger, Hawkeye. All personnel are in hardened positions. You are cleared hot. Mitchell felt the familiar calm that came before combat. Her breathing slowed. Her hands relaxed on the controls. Everything outside the cockpit faded except the target picture on her display. Santos, final weapons check. All systems green. GAU-8 selected. Safety off. Ready to engage. The enemy convoy filled Mitchell's targeting reticle. Lead vehicle was a BTR-80, probably carrying a squad of fighters plus crew. Behind it, 6 technical trucks mounted with machine guns and rocket launchers. The trail vehicle was another BTR, hanging back to provide covering fire. 30 seconds to target, Mitchell announced. She could see Firebase Alpha now, a cluster of brown buildings in defensive positions carved into the valley floor. Smoke drifted from several structures. The green signal smoke was already dissipating in the wind. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. Keep your heads down. Here we come. Mitchell's thumb moved to the trigger. The A-10 dropped toward the enemy convoy like a hunting hawk, engines screaming their deadly song. Mitchell squeezed the trigger. The GAU-8 cannon erupted beneath her feet, sending 30mm shells downrange at 4,000 rounds per minute. The entire aircraft shuddered as the massive gun fired, its distinctive BARRT sound echoing across the valley. The lead BTR disappeared in a cloud of dust and smoke. When it cleared, the armored vehicle sat motionless, its turret blown clean off. Secondary explosions rippled through the hull as ammunition cooked off. Good hit, good hit. Santos called out. Lead target destroyed. Mitchell pulled the A-10 into a climbing left turn, banking away from the convoy. Below, the remaining vehicles scattered like ants from a kicked nest. Technical trucks raced for cover behind rocks and buildings. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. Lead enemy vehicle is down. 7 hostiles remaining. Outstanding work, Hawkeye. You just saved our bacon. We can see the smoke from here. Mitchell leveled off at 8,000 feet, scanning for her next target. The second BTR had pulled behind a cluster of mud brick buildings, using the structures as cover. Smart move, but not smart enough. Santos, I need a Maverick on that BTR. Can you get a lock through the buildings? Working on it, Colonel. The thermal signature is strong, but I need a cleaner angle. Mitchell banked right, searching for position. The convoy had spread out along 2 miles of road, making them harder to hit but also reducing their concentrated firepower. Hawkeye 1-1, Firebase Alpha. Enemy forces are dismounting from vehicles. We're taking small arms fire from multiple positions. Rodriguez sounded calmer now. Having air support overhead changed everything for ground troops. Even if she wasn't actively firing, her presence kept enemy heads down. Mitchell lined up for another strafing run on the technical trucks. These were easier targets, unarmored pickup trucks with machine guns mounted in their beds. One burst from the GAU-8 would turn them into scrap metal. Santos, switching back to gun. Target those technicals on the south side of the road. Roger. I've got 3 vehicles grouped together near that compound. Mitchell rolled into her attack dive. The targeting reticle settled on the lead truck. Her finger moved to the trigger. A streak of white smoke shot up from the convoy. Missile launch. Santos shouted. Sam coming up fast. Mitchell jerked the stick left, throwing the A-10 into a violent turn. The surface-to-air missile streaked past her right wing, missing by 50 feet. She felt the heat wash through the cockpit. Holy hell, where did that come from? Santos was already scanning her displays. Shoulder-fired Sam from the convoy. They've got Stingers, Colonel. Mitchell's blood turned cold. Stinger missiles were American-made, designed to kill aircraft exactly like hers. If the enemy had captured American weapons, this mission just got exponentially more dangerous. Firebase Alpha, be advised enemy has surface-to-air missiles. American hardware. Copy, Hawkeye. We lost a convoy last week. They must have gotten into our supply cache. Mitchell climbed higher, putting distance between herself and the missile threat. At 12,000 feet, she was safer from Stingers but less effective against ground targets. Another missile launched from the convoy, this one falling short as Mitchell maintained altitude. The enemy was burning through their SAMs, but they only needed one good shot. Colonel, I'm seeing something else on the thermal, Santos said. Her voice carried a new tension. Some of those vehicles, they've got heat signatures that look wrong. Mitchell checked her own display. 3 of the technical trucks showed unusual thermal patterns, cooler spots that might be human bodies. What are you thinking, Santos? Those aren't equipment heat signatures. They look like people tied to the vehicles. Mitchell felt her stomach drop. She'd heard about this tactic but never encountered it directly. Enemy forces using prisoners as human shields, making airstrikes nearly impossible. Can you confirm? Santos adjusted her sensors, zooming in on the questionable vehicles. After 30 seconds, she spoke quietly. Colonel, I'm seeing what looks like American uniforms. They've got our people tied to those trucks. Mitchell stared at her display. The convoy was moving again, heading straight for Firebase Alpha. But now 3 of the vehicles carried what appeared to be captured American soldiers. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. We may have a complication. Possible friendly personnel with the enemy convoy. Say again, Hawkeye? Enemy appears to be using American prisoners as human shields. The radio went silent for 10 seconds. When Rodriguez came back, his voice was flat. Hawkeye 1-1, Firebase Alpha. We copy. Be advised we have 47 souls at this location who need immediate assistance. Mitchell circled higher, watching the convoy advance. The vehicles with prisoners stayed in the middle of the formation, protected by the others. It was a calculated move, forced the American pilot to choose between saving the firebase and risking captured soldiers. Santos, how many prisoners do you count? Hard to tell from this altitude. Maybe 6 to 8 personnel tied to 3 different vehicles. Mitchell's radio crackled with static. The dust storm was getting closer, already affecting communications. Soon it would be on top of them, making precision strikes impossible. The convoy was now 600 meters from Firebase Alpha's perimeter. Close enough that their heavy weapons could devastate the base's defenses. Colonel, Santos said quietly, what are we going to do? Mitchell stared down at the impossible choice below. Save 47 soldiers by destroying vehicles that might hold 8 more Americans. Or watch Firebase Alpha fall while trying to rescue prisoners who might already be dead. The convoy kept moving. Time was running out. Mitchell banked the A-10 in a wide circle, buying time to think. The convoy crawled forward like a deadly snake, prisoners visible on 3 vehicles. Her altimeter read 11,000 feet, high enough to avoid most shoulder-fired missiles but making target identification harder. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. I need better intel on those prisoners. Can anyone confirm American personnel? Rodriguez's response came through bursts of gunfire. Hawkeye, we had a patrol go missing 2 days ago. Sergeant Williams and 5 soldiers. They were escorting supply trucks to the village. Santos checked her weapons display. Colonel, we've got 8 minutes before that dust storm hits us. After that, we're flying blind. Mitchell watched brown clouds rolling across the mountains like a wall of mud. Once that hit, the mission was over. Firebase Alpha would have to hold with whatever they had. Santos, can you isolate those prisoner vehicles from the others? Negative. They're keeping them in the middle of the formation. Smart tactical move. Mitchell's radio crackled with a new voice. Weak signal, lots of static, but definitely American. Any station, any station. This is Sergeant Williams. We're tied to enemy vehicles. Don't engage. Repeat, do not engage convoy. The transmission cut to static. Mitchell felt her chest tighten. Williams was alive, but using him to neutralize her weapons. Did you copy that, Santos? Roger, Colonel. Confirmed American prisoners. Mitchell climbed higher, trying to get better perspective. The convoy had stopped 500 meters from Firebase Alpha. The BTR in the rear was setting up for a bombardment position. Firebase Alpha, enemy vehicles have stopped. Looks like they're preparing for final assault. Copy, Hawkeye. We can see them from our position. That rear BTR has its main gun trained on our command bunker. Mitchell's left engine temperature gauge flickered yellow. Nothing serious yet, but something to watch. The A-10 could fly on one engine if needed, but performance suffered significantly. Colonel, Santos said quietly, Firebase Alpha won't survive a direct assault from those BTRs. Even if we can't hit the prisoner vehicles, we need to do something about that armor. Mitchell studied her tactical display. The prisoner vehicles sat in the middle. The BTRs anchored front and rear. Technical trucks filled the gaps between them. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Lieutenant Colonel James Mitchell, retired, sitting on their back porch in Kansas 3 years ago. Andrea, you'll face choices in combat that don't have good answers. When that happens, you find the least bad option and live with the consequences. Santos, what if we separate them? How do you mean, Colonel? Mitchell traced the convoy's formation with her finger. The road curves around that rocky outcrop. If we could force the front vehicles to advance while the rear vehicles take cover. That might work. Drop a bomb on the road behind the prisoner vehicles. Force the convoy to split up. Mitchell nodded. Then hit the lead elements that don't have prisoners. Risky, Colonel. We'd be danger close to our own people. The radio crackled again. Williams' voice, stronger now. Any American aircraft, this is Sergeant Williams. We count 6 prisoners on 3 vehicles. They're using us to prevent airstrikes. Firebase Alpha needs immediate assistance. Mitchell's respect for Williams climbed. The man was risking his life to give her tactical intelligence. Sergeant Williams, this is Colonel Mitchell. Can you tell me which vehicles you're on? Roger, Colonel. 3 technical trucks in the convoy center. We're zip-tied to the truck beds. They've got 1 prisoner per vehicle plus 3 in the middle truck. Santos was already calculating. Colonel, if we can mark those 3 vehicles. Williams, can your people get low when I make my run? We'll do our best, ma'am. But our movement is limited. Mitchell checked her fuel. Enough for 2 more attack runs, maybe 3 if she pushed it. The dust storm was 6 minutes away. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. I'm going to attempt to separate the convoy. When I do, you need to be ready to provide covering fire for those prisoners. Roger, Hawkeye. We'll do whatever we can. Mitchell rolled into a steep dive toward the road behind the convoy. Her targeting computer locked onto a section of asphalt 200 meters behind the last vehicle. One Mark 82 bomb would crater the road, cutting off retreat and forcing the enemy to choose between advancing or abandoning their human shields. Santos, programming bomb release for road interdiction. Copy. Bomb armed and ready. At 4,000 feet, Mitchell pickled the bomb. The 500-pound Mark 82 dropped away, its fins stabilizing the weapon as it fell toward the road. She pulled up hard, climbing away from the target area. 5 seconds later, the bomb detonated. A massive explosion threw dirt and rock 300 feet into the air. When the smoke cleared, a 20-foot crater blocked the road. Direct hit, Santos reported. Road is impassable. The convoy stopped. Through her targeting pod, Mitchell watched enemy fighters jumping from vehicles, taking positions behind rocks and abandoned buildings. But the prisoner vehicles remained stationary in the middle of the formation. Hawkeye 1-1, good effect on target. Enemy convoy is stopped and confused. Mitchell began her turn for the next attack run. The BTR at the front of the convoy was now isolated from the others, separated by 300 meters of open ground. Santos, Maverick missile on that lead BTR. Clean shot with no prisoners nearby. Roger. Target locked. Missile ready. Mitchell lined up the shot. Her finger moved to the missile release button. Below, the enemy BTR's turret swiveled, searching for her aircraft. Fox 3, Mitchell called, launching the Maverick. The missile streaked down, its infrared seeker homing on the BTR's hot engine. The explosion lit up the valley, destroying the armored vehicle and sending debris across the road. Firebase Alpha, lead enemy armor is destroyed. Remaining vehicles are separated from prisoners. Outstanding, Hawkeye. That levels the playing field considerably. But Mitchell's celebration was short-lived. Her left engine temperature gauge jumped to red. Oil pressure was dropping fast. Santos, we've got a problem. Left engine is overheating. I see it, Colonel. Looks like we took shrapnel from that first missile launch. Mitchell checked her engine parameters. The left turbine was running hot and losing power. She had maybe 10 minutes before it shut down completely. Can we make it home on one engine? Affirmative, but our attack capability is limited. Single-engine operations restrict our maneuvering. Mitchell looked down at the remaining convoy. 5 vehicles still operational, including the 3 carrying prisoners. The rear BTR was advancing now, moving to support the dismounted fighters. Her radio crackled with Williams' voice again. Hawkeye 1-1, enemy is preparing to execute prisoners. They're threatening to kill us if you continue attacking. Mitchell's blood ran cold. She could see figures moving around the prisoner vehicles, weapons raised. The enemy commander was making his position clear, back off or watch Americans die. Firebase Alpha, did you copy that transmission? Roger, Hawkeye. We heard. Your call, Colonel. Mitchell stared at her engine gauges. 1 engine failing, limited time on station, and an enemy force that was willing to murder prisoners to protect themselves. Firebase Alpha was still taking heavy fire from dismounted infantry. Without air support, Rodriguez and his people wouldn't last another hour. Santos, ammunition count. 900 rounds of 30mm remaining. 3 Mavericks. 1 Mark 82. Mitchell began another orbit, her damaged engine vibrating through the airframe. The dust storm was 4 minutes away, a brown wall advancing like the end of the world. She keyed her radio to the emergency frequency. Sergeant Williams, this is Colonel Mitchell. I need to know exactly where you and your people are positioned on those vehicles. Roger, Colonel. I'm in the back of truck number 2, counting from the front. Johnson and Martinez are in truck number 4. Patterson, Brown, and Davis are in the middle truck. Can any of you move? Negative. We're secured to the vehicle frames. But Colonel. Williams paused. Do what you have to do. Don't let Firebase Alpha fall because of us. Mitchell closed her eyes for 2 seconds. When she opened them, her decision was made. Williams, I'm not leaving you behind. We're going to get creative. She studied the convoy formation again. The 3 prisoner vehicles were spaced about 50 meters apart, connected by dismounted fighters using them as cover. But there was a gap, a narrow window where she might separate the prisoners from their captors. Santos, what if we use the cannon to create a dust screen? Kick up enough dirt to blind their overwatch, then use precise maverick strikes on the vehicles without prisoners? Santos ran calculations on her targeting computer. Possible, but extremely risky. Margin for error is about 10 meters. Better than no margin at all. Mitchell's left engine coughed, losing more power. The aircraft pulled slightly to the left as thrust became uneven. She compensated with rudder input, maintaining controlled flight. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. I'm going to attempt prisoner separation. When I start my run, be ready to provide covering fire. Roger, Hawkeye. We're locked and loaded. Mitchell descended to 6,000 feet, keeping her distance from the convoy while studying angles. The rear BTR had moved into firing position, its cannon aimed directly at Firebase Alpha's main defensive position. Santos, that BTR is about to flatten our guys. We need to move now. Colonel, dust storm is 2 minutes out. This might be our last clear shot. Mitchell rolled the A-10 into a shallow dive, aiming for the ground 50 meters ahead of the lead prisoner vehicle. She'd use the cannon to kick up a massive dust cloud, then circle back for precision strikes while the enemy was blinded. Williams, get as low as you can. Things are about to get loud. Roger, Colonel. We're ready. Mitchell's thumb found the trigger. The GAU-8 spun up, ready to fire. Below, the convoy waited like sitting ducks, unaware that their human shields were about to become their weakness instead of their strength. The A-10 screamed down toward the valley floor, its pilot gambling everything on a plan that had never been tried before. Mitchell squeezed the trigger. The GAU-8 cannon roared, chewing up Earth 50 meters ahead of the convoy. Dirt and rocks exploded skyward, creating a thick brown cloud that swallowed the lead vehicles. Direct hit on terrain, Santos called. Dust screen is working. The convoy disappeared behind the artificial dust storm Mitchell had created. Vehicle engines revved as drivers hit their brakes, blinded by the sudden wall of dirt. Now, Santos. Maverick on that rear BTR while they can't see us. Target locked. Missile away. The AGM-65 Maverick streaked through the dust cloud, its infrared seeker unaffected by the visual obstruction. The explosion lit up the brown haze like lightning inside a thundercloud. Good kill. Rear armor is down. Mitchell banked hard right, circling back for another pass. Her left engine shuddered, oil pressure dropping into the red zone. She reduced power on the failing engine, compensating with increased thrust on the right. Williams, how are you holding up down there? The sergeant's voice came through weak but steady. Still breathing, Colonel. The dust is helping. Our guards can't see much either. Through the settling dust, Mitchell spotted movement. Enemy fighters were abandoning the vehicles with prisoners, running for cover in nearby buildings. The human shield tactic was failing as visibility dropped to 0. Santos, I'm seeing dismounts leaving the prisoner vehicles. Confirmed. Thermal shows multiple personnel moving away from the trucks. Looks like they're repositioning. Mitchell smiled grimly. The enemy commander had made a mistake. By moving his fighters away from the prisoners, he'd given her the opening she needed. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. Prisoner vehicles are now isolated. Guards have moved to cover positions. Outstanding news, Hawkeye. We can provide covering fire if you can get those trucks away from the convoy. Mitchell descended to 4,000 feet, her damaged engine vibrating harder. Warning lights blinked on her instrument panel, but the aircraft was still flying. Williams, I need you and your people to stay as low as possible. I'm going to try something. Roger, Colonel. We're as flat as we can get. Mitchell lined up on the road between the prisoner vehicles and the main convoy. Instead of destroying targets, she'd used the cannon to cut the road, creating a barrier that forced the trucks to move away from enemy support. Santos, watch for muzzle flashes. Soon as I start firing, those fighters are going to shoot back. Copy. I've got eyes on multiple defensive positions. Mitchell pulled the trigger. The cannon walked across the asphalt, tearing a trench 3 feet deep and 50 feet long. Chunks of road surface flew in all directions, creating an impassable barrier. Immediately, muzzle flashes erupted from the buildings. AK-47 rounds and heavier machine gun fire reached up toward her aircraft. Most fell short, but she heard several impacts on her fuselage. Taking fire, Mitchell announced, pulling into a climbing turn. Hawkeye 1-1, Firebase Alpha. The prisoner trucks are moving. They're driving away from the convoy. Mitchell looked down through the clearing dust. The 3 vehicles carrying Americans were heading south, away from both the convoy and Firebase Alpha. The drivers, isolated from their support, were looking for escape routes. Williams, where are those trucks taking you? Looks like they're heading for that village to the south. The one with the compound walls. Santos checked her map. Colonel, that village is empty. Evacuated last month. But it's got good defensive positions. Mitchell's left engine oil pressure hit 0. Red warning lights filled her cockpit as the turbine began shutting down automatically. Engine failure, she announced. Left engine is done. The A-10 yard left as power dropped. Mitchell compensated with rudder and aileron, maintaining controlled flight on the remaining engine. Single-engine performance was significantly reduced, but the aircraft was designed for this situation. Can we continue the mission? Affirmative. We're limited to shallow attack angles, but we can still fight. Mitchell focused on the main convoy. With the prisoners separated, she had clear targets. The remaining vehicles were clustered around the damaged road, fighters taking cover behind disabled trucks. Firebase Alpha, prisoner vehicles are clear. I'm engaging remaining convoy elements. Roger, Hawkeye. You are cleared hot on all targets except those 3 trucks heading south. Mitchell rolled into her attack dive, shallower now due to single-engine limitations. The remaining BTR sat exposed, its crew probably focused on the firebase instead of air threats. Santos, Maverick on that BTR. Final armor threat. Target locked. Good tone. Missile away. The BTR disappeared in flame and smoke. Secondary explosions indicated ammunition storage detonation. When the smoke cleared, nothing remained but burning metal. Firebase Alpha, enemy armor is neutralized. We see it, Hawkeye. That was beautiful. Mitchell turned toward the scattered technical trucks. Most had taken cover behind buildings, but 2 remained in the open, their crews attempting to remount heavy weapons. Santos, cannon run on those exposed technicals. Roger. Switching to gun. Mitchell lined up the shot, flying lower than she'd prefer but needing accuracy with reduced engine power. The GAU-8 spoke again, its depleted uranium rounds shredding the unarmored vehicles. 2 more down, Santos reported. Remaining vehicles are in cover. The dust storm was 1 minute away, a towering wall of brown that would end all air operations. Mitchell had to finish this quickly. Firebase Alpha, I need suppressive fire on those building positions. Keep their heads down while I make one final pass. Wilco, Hawkeye. Firing now. Tracer rounds erupted from Firebase Alpha's defensive positions, raking the buildings where enemy fighters had taken cover. Return fire diminished immediately as the insurgents ducked for protection. Mitchell descended to 2,000 feet, her single engine straining. She could see individual fighters running between buildings, abandoning vehicles and heavy weapons. Santos, spray the area with cannon fire. Not trying to hit specific targets, just encourage them to keep running. Roger. Suppression fire. The GAU-8 stitched across the convoy area, kicking up dirt and destroying abandoned equipment. Enemy fighters scattered further into the hills, their attack broken. Firebase Alpha, enemy forces are withdrawing. Convoy is neutralized. Outstanding, Hawkeye. You just saved 47 lives. Mitchell turned south toward the village where the prisoner vehicles had disappeared. Her fuel was getting low, and the approaching dust storm would make any rescue attempt impossible. Williams, what's your status? We're alive, Colonel. Truck stopped at the village. Guards are arguing about what to do. I think your attack spooked them. Can you get loose? Working on it. These zip ties are military grade, but Johnson's got small hands. She might be able to slip out. Mitchell's right engine temperature was climbing now, working overtime to compensate for the failed left turbine. She had maybe 15 minutes of flight time remaining. Santos, we need to get those prisoners. Agreed, but that dust storm hits in 30 seconds. We won't be able to see anything. Mitchell watched the brown wall engulf the mountains ahead. In moments, visibility would drop to zero. But she couldn't leave Williams and his people behind. Firebase Alpha, Hawkeye 1-1. Mission complete on convoy threat. Proceeding to prisoner recovery. Roger, Hawkeye. Thanks for saving our lives. The dust storm hit like a solid wall, turning day into twilight. Mitchell's world shrank to the glowing instruments in her cockpit and the failing engine that might not get her home. Mitchell flew blind through the dust storm, her instruments the only guide. The A-10 shook violently on one engine, but she held course toward the village. Her fuel gauge showed 12 minutes remaining. Williams, what's your situation? Static filled her headset. Then Williams' voice broke through. Colonel, Johnson got loose. She's working on the others. The guards ran when the dust hit. They can't see us either. Can you move? Give us 2 minutes. Johnson's almost got Martinez free. Mitchell circled the village by instruments alone, trusting her GPS coordinates. Outside the cockpit, everything was brown. The dust was so thick she couldn't see her own wingtips. Santos, plot a course to the nearest forward airstrip. We're not making it back to Bagram on one engine. Forward operating base Shank is 8 minutes south. Short runway, but they can handle us. Mitchell's right engine temperature gauge climbed toward the red line. The remaining turbine was working too hard, pushing beyond design limits. Williams, I need you mobile in 60 seconds. My aircraft won't stay airborne much longer. Almost there, Colonel. Johnson's a magician with these knots. 2 minutes felt like hours. Mitchell fought to keep the damaged A-10 in controlled flight as warning lights multiplied across her instrument panel. Hydraulic pressure dropping. Electrical system fluctuating. The aircraft was coming apart piece by piece. Hawkeye 1-1, this is Williams. All personnel are free and mobile. We're moving to the village center for pickup. Relief flooded through Mitchell's chest. Outstanding, Sergeant. Ground rescue is en route from Firebase Alpha. Roger. Colonel. Williams paused. Thank you. You could have written us off. Mitchell smiled despite everything. That's not how we do business, Williams. Her radio crackled with Rodriguez's voice from Firebase Alpha. Hawkeye 1-1, Firebase Alpha. Ground rescue team is rolling toward the village. Enemy forces have completely withdrawn from the area. Copy, Firebase Alpha. How are your casualties? Manageable, thanks to you. Medics are treating wounded, but everyone's going home. Mitchell turned toward FOB Shank, her fuel critically low. The dust storm was starting to clear, revealing patches of desert below. She could see the forward base's runway in the distance, a thin strip of asphalt carved from the wilderness. Santos, emergency approach checklist. Roger. Single-engine landing procedures activated. The A-10 touched down hard at FOB Shank, its damaged frame protesting as Mitchell applied brakes. The aircraft rolled to a stop just past the runway midpoint, smoke trailing from the dead left engine. Ground crews surrounded the aircraft as Mitchell shut down the remaining engine. She and Santos climbed out, legs shaky from adrenaline and exhaustion. 20 minutes later, a helicopter landed carrying Williams and his 5 rescued soldiers. They walked toward Mitchell's disabled A-10, dusty and tired but alive. Williams stopped in front of Mitchell and saluted. She returned the salute, then extended her hand. "Good work staying calm down there, Sergeant. Good work keeping us breathing, Colonel." Rodriguez arrived an hour later with the rest of Firebase Alpha's survivors. He approached Mitchell with something in his hands, a unit coin from the 1st Engineering Battalion. "Colonel, this belongs to Firebase Alpha. But after today, I think it belongs to you." Mitchell accepted the coin. Bronze, with the battalion crest on one side and "Building the Future" engraved on the other. "Firebase Alpha stands because you answered our call," Rodriguez continued. 47 soldiers are going home to their families because you refused to give up. Mitchell looked at her damaged aircraft. Bullet holes dotted the fuselage. The left engine hung twisted and black. It would take weeks to repair, if repair was possible. Santos walked up carrying Mitchell's gear. "Colonel, transport back to Bagram leaves in 10 minutes. Mitchell nodded, then pulled out her satellite phone. She dialed a number she knew by heart. "Dad, it's Andrea. I wanted to let you know, I kept the promise today." Her father's voice was warm across the miles. "The promise? Never leave anyone behind. Just like you taught me. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Your grandfather would be too." Mitchell looked around the small forward base. Williams was getting his wounds treated by medics. Rodriguez was coordinating the return to Firebase Alpha. Santos was already planning their next mission. "Dad, I have to go. But I wanted you to know, the tradition continues. It always has, Andrea. It always will." Mitchell hung up and shouldered her gear. The dust storm had passed, leaving clear blue sky. Somewhere to the north, Firebase Alpha was rebuilding. The road construction would continue. The mission would go on. Santos fell into step beside her as they walked toward the transport helicopter. "Colonel, what do you think happens next?" Mitchell looked back at her battered A-10. Tomorrow there would be another mission, another call for help. That was the job. Next, we fix our bird and get back to work. Think they'll court-martial you for disobeying orders? Mitchell smiled. Santos, they can't court-martial half the Air Force. Someone's got to keep the Warthogs flying. The helicopter's rotors began spinning, kicking up dust and small whirlwinds. Mitchell climbed aboard, settling next to a window where she could see her damaged aircraft growing smaller below. Firebase Alpha was secure. 6 American prisoners were free. The convoy was destroyed. Her A-10 would fly again. Not a bad day's work. Thanks for joining me for the story tonight. If you enjoyed, I'd love it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe for more inspiring military stories.